Speaking of dangerous ingredients, RFK, this was, I believe a Fox News clip talking about dangerous ingredients. Here's what shocks me about this. I'm kind of stunned, Fox News included, who just likes to play things a little bit more safe. I'm not trying to pick on them completely. We have commercials that run on there for Mammoth, and there's some great people there, but they tend to kind of toe the line in terms of stuff, a lot of stuff. And I'm kind of surprised that a lot of this conversation has come out. But RFK was on Fox and Friends talking about it on the weekend. Take a listen.
Why should people be worried about these kind of products?
The seed oils are one of the most unhealthy ingredients that we have in foods. And seed oils, the reason they're in the foods is because they're heavily subsidized. They're very, very cheap, but they are associated with all kinds of very, very serious illnesses, including body-wide inflammation.
Right.
Which affects all of our health. It's one of the worst things you can eat, and it's almost impossible to avoid. If you eat any processed food, you're going to be eating seed oil.
Right, and it's interesting, the government subsidizes it. Why would the government want to subsidize something that's going to make people sick, and then in the end, we all end up paying for that in terms of healthcare costs, which are skyrocketing?
Yeah, because that is a direct result of corruption. About 75% of FDA's budget comes from regulated industry, and that means food processors and pharmaceutical industry. All of them profit from a sick population. You know,
a big item that, and by the way, it's getting very expensive, are cereals. Why is the food coloring in particular bad?
Food coloring, you see here yellow food coloring, that is a petroleum product. Mm-hmm. It's associated with really, with depression. It's associated with autoimmune injuries and ADHD.
Yeah.
These, and red dye also is very bad. In Europe, the same companies are producing the same products, but they're using natural coloring. But here they can get away with it. We have about almost 1,000 chemicals that are in our food that are either outright banned in Europe or actively discouraged. So you wouldn't be able to buy this kind of stuff in Europe. You ask about why it's so cheap, why it's so ubiquitous. It's because we subsidize the worst foods. We subsidize it with about 70% of our food stamp program is to processed foods, which are all poison.
Right. One of the things that's interesting is you'll see on labels natural flavors, which is this catch-all phrase that I guess was lobbied for, but the ingredients in natural flavors are not really natural.
No. In our country, natural flavors are chemical products. So you can't trust what's on the ingredient label. And the reason for that, again, is government corruption. It's that the agency, the USDA, the FDA, have been captured by the industries they're supposed to regulate. And they all have an interest in subsidies and then in mass poisoning the American public.
Yeah, I want to talk about pesticides, and then let's talk about the policy. So let's talk about the pesticides and the things that worry you about. I mean, this looks like fresh food, right? What should I be worried about here?
Yeah, I mean, the irony is, like, for example, my wife loves kale, and she had the impression that kale is actually good for you. If it's organic, it's very good for you, but most kale and strawberries, for example, grapes, are contaminated with pesticides, and particularly the Environmental Working Group has found what they call the dirty dozen, some of the worst pesticides on these products. So, I look at a strawberry and I think, oh, this is a healthy food, right. But in most cases, unless it's organic, certified organic, you are getting something that's actually hurting you.
Fantastic.
I mean, if that doesn't make you feel like you're up against the world, what doesn't? Or does, whatever. It's just so maddening to hear.
She's so cute when she's like, why would companies actually want to try and poison us? Why would the government let them? Oh, you're darling.
Well, I think Rachel's just trying to let him answer. Maybe not. I don't know. But I mean, here's what I get out of that. All things, I know a lot about that stuff. I don't know everything. I feel like I'm learning more all the time. But you learn about the crap they put in there. And it just makes me want to start a compound and grow all my own shit. Like that's where it gets me. Like we're starting a compound. Krista, Tom, everyone, come on. We're going to compound life. We'll still do the show from the compound. We'll have a state-of-the-art facility
in French Guiana.
Yeah,
property there.
In French. Do we have to do it in French Guiana? I mean, can we?
Let's just change the name from Jonestown to something else.
Krista's on board. Right. Krista's on board. Not with Guyana, but man, I mean, it is wild, and you hear this. I mean, I look at a jar of pickles, right? And I think I've referenced this before. It could be anything. Take a jar of pickles. Go Grillo's, by the way. And it's vinegar, garlic, cucumber, salt, whatever. Basic stuff. And then you look at this jar of pickles. 90% of the jars of pickles on the shelves there. And it's got polysorbate 80, natural flavors, yellow dye, all of this crap. And the thing that Grillo's isn't right next to it on the shelf, but the products next to it didn't require any of that. Right. And it's better for you, and it's a better product, and then you see all of them doing that, and then you talk RFK talking about overseas. I have a gluten intolerance. I'm not a I don't have celiacs, but it gives me problems if I have too much of it. I've gone like 10 days in a row with it, by the way, so feeling some of those effects. But if I go to Europe, eating their bread, no big deal. It's different. He talks about the cereals over there. They can color it. We have cereals for the kids that are still all these fun-looking colors and whatnot and seem fun, but they're made with better products and naturally given their colors, not freaking chemicals and dyes and all this crap. It's just crazy. Like if you couldn't do it, then you'd understand like a lab team coming up with like, all right, how do we Doc Brown this and make Fruit Loops look the way they do? But if you can do it without doing that and not kill people, you'd think you'd go that route. Except, who's their best friend? Big Pharma. Does Big Pharma want you healthy? No, they don't. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit, but I do like that he's talking about it because no one, we were talking about this earlier. When's the last time seed oils came up in conversation for you guys?
Right.
Never, but they're awful. They're freaking awful. And everywhere you go, that's why I hate eating out now. Just because I assume that most places use cheap seed oils because they're cheap. It really is maddening when I'm mostly good, but I eat these chips. And I'm mostly this, and I eat this chip. But what kind of? That's either canola or sunflower oil in those chips, bro. Like, not to mention the other crap that's in there. Not to mention the other. It's just maddening when you really break it down. How 98% of the food is literally not good for you, right. Including the stuff that you thought was good for you.
Whether you live at the beach, are going to one, or just want to imagine yourself there, Red Beach Nation has the comfy, patriotic apparel for the occasion. Founded by a former counterterrorism officer and war veteran of both the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, Red Beach Nation is committed to upholding the American values and principles that we all hold so dear. So grab your swag and rep the nation. Visit redbeachnation.com and use the promo code on your screen to save 10% off. Again, that's redbeachnation.com.